Hi everybody, what's up? My name is Juan. I am just one reader, blah blah blah. You know who I am, that's why you're here. And I am here with another recent reads video. So I will be talking quite briefly on two books that I've read recently. That's why it's called recent reads. So these are books numbers 54 and 55 that I've read so far in 2017. I hope you enjoy, and more than anything else, I hope that you leave all your comments down below because I love reading them, and I love having conversations with you guys. And I think we can probably have some very interesting conversations about this two books in particular. So the first book that I want to mention today is Autumn by Ali Smith. Oh, there's a little bit of a glare. Autumn by Ali Smith, and you know the deal with Ali Smith, right? Ali Smith is an author that sometimes she has this reputation. She sort of has a kind of cult following. I don't want to say cult following because it sounds like it's like a sect or like something dark and twisty and something really weird. But what I mean to say is that some people really, really like her and follow her. And on the other side, there's a bunch of readers out there who really dislike her because she does have a tendency, not a tendency, she has a writing style that can be very off-putting and really unnerving and jarring. She writes in this kind of stream of consciousness, experimental way that is not for everybody. Now, this is my second time reading Ali Smith. The first Ali Smith thing that I read was There But For The, which is a novel that I read like 2 or 3 years ago, and I absolutely adored it. It actually made it into my top 10 or whatever, top 15, top 10 lists of that year. It was one of my favorite books of that year. I thought it was very weird and strange, and I could see that why a lot of people would be very upset with her writing style, but personally I really liked it. So that's why I chose to read Autumn, because I do want to read more by Ali Smith. And so what can I say? This was not the right experience for me. This was not the right book for me. And I really mean that. This is not the right book for me, but I do feel that Ali Smith is the right author for me. So I do want to read more of her work. I really have a strong feeling that I could get on pretty well with her style. But this particular novel just did not really work for me. And this is a very personal issue. So I really want to underline that it was something to do with me and this novel. We just didn't get on. We didn't click. Basically, I gave this book 2 stars on Goodreads. It's probably between 2 and 3, in that gray area between huh and that's my rating. Basically, I gave it that strange rating because there were some passages in this book that I thought were breathtakingly beautiful, like poetic and just wonderful and beautiful, and they spoke about very human things and very human feelings and thoughts and anxieties, like growing old and losing your body and dying, and also friendship and love and motherhood and mothers and daughters and a lot of different things kind of all over the place. But then there were some other stuff in here. There was a lot of other stuff that just went completely over my head, that I just felt kind of stupid, kind of ignorant. I didn't know if I was lost because I was stupid or because I just wasn't understanding what was happening. Basically, I had this feeling that you sometimes get when you are in a movie theater and you get the feeling that people are enjoying the movie and you are sometimes laughing at the movie, and like you sometimes catch a joke or you understand something and you catch bits and pieces here and there, but overall you just want the movie to be over so that you can go and watch something else, like an episode of Friends that will just captivate you entirely. That was my experience reading Autumn by Ali Smith. I enjoyed some parts, but this book is not for me. I will not continue on with her season quartet of novels, Winter, etc. I will not continue on with that particular series. However, I do own more of her work. I own some of her novels and short story collections, and I will continue reading her because I think she's very interesting. Now, the second book that I want to talk about today is The Book of Dust by Philip Pullman. Don't worry, there will be no spoilers in what I will be saying here today, so I will only say what this book was about, like the basic, very basic premise that you could get from the inside flaps or the back or any online synopsis. And I will tell you some of my pros, some of my cons, and my overall rating, my overall opinion. Suffice it to say that I am a huge fan of Philip Pullman, in particular of his Dark Materials trilogy, which is my favorite trilogy of all time. It's like one of my favorite 5 books of all time. I even have my own alethiometer and everything, or Golden Compass as it's also known. Yeah, I'm completely in love with his Dark Materials and Philip Pullman. So The Book of Dust was my biggest, most anticipated book in the last 10 years, probably. Yeah, 10 years. So this is, The Book of Dust is kind of a new trilogy that Philip Pullman is writing, sort of as a companion piece to his Dark Materials. He says that it's not technically a prequel, it's not a sequel, it's kind of an equal. However, this particular book in the trilogy, which is called La Belle Sauvage, Volume 1, La Belle Sauvage, it is a prequel. We follow some of the characters that appear in his Dark Materials in the past. For example, the protagonist of his Dark Materials is Lyra Belacqua, and in this book we follow Lyra as she is a baby. So we see baby Lyra, we see Mrs. Coulter, we see Lord Asriel, we see some people from the original trilogy. Now, what is the basic premise of this particular installment, La Belle Sauvage, which I think is a really nice title, by the way, very metaphorical and kind of represents various things at once that you will understand once you've read the book. So the basic premise is we follow a boy. His name is Malcolm Polstead. He is 11 years old. He has sort of a working life. He goes to school, and then in the evenings he helps out in the family business, which is like a bar, like an inn. And he works. He's a very charming boy. He's a wonderful protagonist. I instantly fell in love. Within the first chapter, I knew that I was going to adore this new protagonist, and I did. And then he starts to become involved in this mystery, in this sort of political, religious intrigue, which is very similar to what he does in his Dark Materials. You know, this thing with the church, and there's a lot of very heavy commentary on religion and how sometimes, more often than not, religions tend to blind people and silence people instead of promoting free thought and free thinking and freedom. So there's a lot of that commentary that Philip Pullman does so well in his Dark Materials. That's still very much at the core of the plot of this book. So we follow Malcolm, and like I said, baby Lyra is involved. I will not mention anything else except for what I've already mentioned, because I think the plot of this book is very interesting, and I really enjoyed sort of peeling through the layers of the story, and I want you to have the same experience. Now I'm gonna wrap this up quickly because it's starting to rain and it's gonna get very loud. So my pros and my cons, and then my overall rating. My biggest pros were the writing. The writing is very beautiful and it feels familiar. It feels like Philip Pullman has been roaming and has been thinking, mulling this over for years and years, which he has. And my other big pro was, like I said, the characters in general. In particular, Malcolm as a protagonist, I think is really interesting. If you compare him to Lyra, the protagonist in the original trilogy, I think that's a very cool, very good exercise to compare them as protagonists or as heroes. I also liked the rest of the characters that I will not go into a lot of detail about them right now because, I just want to do this quickly. My other really big pro was the themes that the book explores. Like I said, it's very similar in themes to His Dark Materials. It has a lot to do with, some philosophical matters, a lot of thinking about religion and what is free thinking, etc. But also, I think in this book, because we follow this young boy who is 11 years old, we follow his quest. And I think this is really a story about becoming a man. Like it's a story about what being a man really is about. We see the development and the evolution of this character, and he has to he embarks in this adventure, and there's a lot of stuff that he has to go through. And yeah, if you read this book, you will know what I mean. This is about growing up, but in particular, what masculinity is, or what masculinity could be. So I thought that was really interesting. Now, going to the negative side, my cons, my negative opinions about the book. First of all, the pacing of the book is kind of off. It didn't feel boring or dull. It never did. The book is quite long. It's 450 pages, more or less. And I thought the pacing was kind of off because for the first 350 pages, more or less, I was in love with the book. I thought it was excellent, beautifully written, and just wonderful. But then the last 100 pages or so were just very off, very rushed. A lot of things were kind of left hanging there. They were left unresolved. And yes, maybe this is because this is the first book in a trilogy, so there will probably be a lot of stuff that will be solved and answered in future installments. So I can understand that. I can let it go. But still, as a standalone, it kind of felt, the ending in particular, felt very abrupt and sudden, and just it kind of I didn't like the aftertaste that I had when I finished. And my other really big con, which I think is kind of a very big letdown, honestly, was the villain. The particular villain in this book is a character who, I don't want to spoil it. On paper, the description of the character feels very menacing and very terrifying. The idea of the character feels really gruesome and awful and evil. But in reality, the way that he plays out as a character in the book, in the scenes, in the story, the interaction that he has with the characters, there was just something lacking there for me, and I was never afraid of him or terrified of him. I never felt that kind of dread. And I guess I never bought him as a villain, which is a big, big disappointment because I think the rest of the novel suffers a lot from that. At least for me, it suffered a lot from that because the sense of urgency, of risk, of danger that probably should have been there just wasn't there as much as it should have been. That's my opinion. I just didn't like the villain. I thought there was not a very clear motivation to the villain and why he was doing what he was doing. It kind of felt a little bit convoluted as a plot. But like I said, I am willing to forgive those things because it's the first book in a trilogy, so we'll have to see. So in the end, I am giving this between 3 and 4 stars on Goodreads. It's probably like a 3.75. It was good, but I think I will feel a lot better once I have read the entire trilogy and I can rate each book individually. But yeah, overall, I am really happy. I'm really glad. It's wonderful to come back to this world and to this author and I'm really excited to see where this is going. So where is it gonna take us for the second book? So thank you very much for watching. That's it for today. Leave your comments down below, and I will see you later.